So within your chart information, the significant energy that was really standing out within your chart was your connections. I will say that we're going to talk about a lot of the resistance that you've been working on and how I feel as though you're starting to potentially really shift that in this lifetime. But you have been on a bit of a mission.
Okay.
That's all I'll have to say for quite a little while. You have 4 conjuncts within your chart, which means these are the planetary bodies that you have direct doorways with and very clear connection with within your chart. One of the significant ones and one of the primary ones, which signifies where your soul was birthed into this 15-dimensional time matrix, is Andromeda. So you have a very beautiful connection to Andromeda, that within Andromeda that you actually birthed into this creation and into this universe through a purple color ray. It was really beautiful.
Color.
Is it? Yes. I love it. And that as you birthed through, that you came through within the founder originator lineage. You came through at the 11th dimensional frequency. So you had brought your energy down and kind of anchored it at a midway point. You came in through Andromeda, but in your Andromedan time, you didn't actually really stay there. You came in more through that Stargate and that portal of the Andromedan galaxy. And that as you utilize that galaxy, you came primarily for the Christos mission. So within this, to come birthed for that means that there's already stuff going on within the universe. It means that there's an aspect of what we're going to call maybe your soul family that has been here prior to when you decided to kind of, okay, let me see what's going on. Yeah. I better come on in there and lend a hand. Yeah. What's the shenanigans going on in there? And so with that, you brought new rays, new energies, and this is pure clean codes that came from the Mother Universe. And this is going to be divine feminine energy that came through, holding the pure packets of information that this universe really was in need of. But through the Christos mission, that you came predominantly to hold a integrity and a kind of a passion within one's heart. It's a kind of a knowing. It's a seeding within one's own light codes that one would want to attune themselves back to God's source energy. So with that kind of coming in with the Christos mission, that it was a realization that some of the genetics within the universe was starting to deteriorate a little bit through outside influences and through cloning practices and things like that. There was digression within how the genome of a being could actually hold light. Mm-hmm. And then therefore you really came in to help restructure potentiality for those light codes to be restored within biological forms. Mm-hmm. So that when a soul got incarnated into one, that they could eventually make their way back home again.
So was it like a resonance or something?
It's a resonance. So when you came into this universe, you came in as a luminescent frequency, so a consciousness field. Okay. But that consciousness field of yours went straight to Lyra.
Okay.
So when I really look at your chart, you predominantly resonate with a lot of Lyran genetics within your chart. Now this genetics later gets kind of transmuted down into Syrian Pleiadian kind of energy within your lineage. But one of the things that I really love to do when I first do a chart reading is to ask for your guides to come through. Yeah. And this has probably been one of my favorite parts of doing these readings, just because everyone has such a different and diverse being that's really working with them. Mm-hmm. And your being was the most feline one I've actually seen.
That's why I like cats, I guess. I love cats. Maybe that's why.
Well, and then it was so interesting to me because the more she smiled at me and looked at me, the more I couldn't see you without seeing feline.
Okay.
I was all like, oh my goodness. There is such like a resonance within there. If I could just describe her, she's probably about 6 to 7 maybe feet tall. She seems taller than me. There's almost kind of like a white gown on her, and she's very humanoid. Very humanoid in form, slender but tall. But when you look at the eyes just mesmerize you. They just pull you right in, and there's just a mischievousness, there's a playfulness, and there's just this loving energy to her. And it's funny because it's like I kind of get that almost playfulness from her in the sense that she knows and holds so much wisdom.
So she would be like a Lyran guide then?
Yes. Yeah, she's your Lyran connection that came through that started to resonate some of the energy from your chart.
Cool.
And as she came through, so she's been kind of the one guiding through a lot of the information is what to look through in your chart. But the one thing that was really powerful in there was the depth of the wisdom underneath that. Like someone might see playfulness, but at the same time she has a real mastery of energy. So she could be like force field and they'd bounce right off or something, right? This kind
so
of
maybe
energy.
I tap into her for information.
Absolutely.
Or maybe I get some of my messages.
I definitely would start to connect with her. I do apologize. I know a lot of people ask if I get names, but I don't tend to get names. But they are very... I do get a lot of the visuals.
Some of their names are different that we're not familiar with or something.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So as you entered in, that you went straight to, you immediately went to Lyra, and you actually incarnated in a couple planetary bodies there, but you incarnated there in female cycles. You were working with the divine feminine energy within this, and it's not to say a yay or nay on the masculine energy. It's just primarily the feminine energy was what was holding more of the Christos lineage there. It was the ones that were really into the sacred teachings, the sacred arts. And so you went in there and your body tone dropped a little bit. It went from 11th dimension and you held a 10th dimensional body form. So you were one of basically the founder Elohai Elohim energies, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Really at the forefront of working together with other planetary systems into how to start to structure the plan, what the Christos mission was going to be. So you were still connected with the higher heaven. You were at such a dimensional level that when you met with council, that many would be council like us sort of sitting around, but even in this vibration, you were indigo colored at this point, 10th dimension. But at that same moment, it's still form, like you could take form, but for the most part, you could also be etheric. And what that did was it gave you an interdimensionary capability of communicating through harmonics. So you could communicate down a little bit, but also still have full counsel with the higher heavens, with basically the founder races from the universe that you just came from, to say, hey, what should we do? How should we work this? Like, what was the plan that was going to be put into motion, into place? So you stayed there an incredibly long time. The majority of your time through different incarnations really was in that space.
I don't think I've been here very many times.
No.
I think this might be one of my first or a couple. I haven't really spent here.
Yes. Yeah, you haven't really spent any time on the surface Earth, but you have spent a lot of time in the inner Earth. So you are my first person that I've really gotten to explore the inner Earth with. So I'm super excited to.
Cool. I was just there in my dream in the inner Earth before I got here. Was the one.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So you spent now realize we're not talking about Earth lives, but you spent approximately 180 life cycles just in the Lyra. And we're talking about life cycles that could have been anywhere from thousands of years to thousands of years.
Yeah, because they
primarily more than, like, each lifetime was around anywhere 1,000 to 2,000 years old. So you spent a long time. And remember that in between life cycles, it wasn't as if you would keep hopping into. You were really at such a high vibration in that you were staying kind of in connection with the architecture and the blueprint of the universe. So the primary energy that you were coming to be is this Christos mission, but it was about helping to build architecture, being part of the council, and also being an ambassador. Now, through these 180 life cycles, what started happening through some of them is you started actually traveling on spacecraft to different planetary systems. So you were, as an ambassador, going to the Orion system. You were working within the Mintaka kind of Orion belt area. So just to kind of let you know, your next significant connection, because you have the most connections with Lyra with 6 connections, and then the one after that is Orion, is actually 7 connections. There's a little bit more connections, but your most significant connections are with Lyra. But in Orion, that is the other place within your chart that you have a tremendous amount of connection. Now, just to know that these connections ranged from counseling and ambassadorship to working with higher dimensional beings within these places. So as I looked into your time in Orion, you did choose at a later time to incarnate there. And that you actually chose to incarnate in Rigel and Alanam, which is in the belt near Mintaka. Okay. So you kind of went in, you went into some kind of intense places, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But within this is just to know that with your Lyra missions, that you are still connected with this. This is still in connection with your North Node and your South Node. This is the direction that you have been moving for your entire incarnation, basically, since you birthed into this matrix. And it's where you are still continuing to go. Now, you're really tied to Earth now.
I am, yeah.
But I do like to ask if you're choosing to come back and you're like, well, yeah, but not on the surface. You're going to remerge with your family. The primary energy that you have on planet Earth is actually with the inner Earth beings. And so it's from the inner Earth that you were before you started incarnating on the surface Earth to start to assist here.
So it was needed, apparently, so we all got called.
Here I am.
But we're doing a good job.
Right? Yes. We're doing amazing.
Yes.
So the ambassador energy was really about sharing social values, sharing the teachings, just to know that within those significant places within Orion, specifically Rigel, I wanted to look in a little bit more, because in Rigel is one of the places where there's another race of beings that was created, and they are a hybrid of the Lyrans, which is the Irma. And they are the feline warrior race. They are a race that was created by the Christos founders in order to protect. So they're kind of our muscle. They're powerful.
You don't want to make the cats mad.
No. Let's just say they, if you do read the Anton Parks books, they were on Earth long before the Anunnaki arrived here, at least at that particular time. There's a lot of timelines. So there's a lot of benevolent, what we would call Anunnaki, but it's really the sacred snake lineage beings that were here, working with the Garden of Earth in harmony with the planners and stuff. But at a particular time, just to know that there's aspects of you in the councils that you were working with that were aware of timelines. And as you pre-planned for outcomes because you had the ability to really read genetics. We haven't come up to it yet, but one of your great skills within the universe has been to read genetic coding. And that as you read it, you can tell where a being has been, what they are blended with, where they are headed, how many life cycles they have, what planetary body they would need to be on to sustain it, if that is going to perpetuate, or is that genome going to start to regress and die out. And this is just a kind of a nursery of the universe kind of thing. We see creations, right? And so you've been a part of a lot of the mixing and blendings of the founder races, because from the gold ray, the blue ray, and the amethyst ray, all three of those have been blending together to form different mixes that I wouldn't necessarily call hybrids. So I want to actually differentiate hybrids, because when we say hybrids, a lot of times people think immediately of the grays. And the truth is that everything's kind of a hybrid. If you think about it, even all the dog species are kind of hybrids because they're just blended races that let's add a little of this, let's add a little of that. So when we talk about, say, gray hybrids, generally what we're talking about is beings that are created outside of the womb of a mother, outside, not from an egg, not from a womb,
from genetic material,
more so from cloning or genetic manipulation, trying to force genetics together in an inhabitable kind of thing. And usually that happens where the grays will come and try to impregnate a woman, but then they have to take the embryo before it proceeds too far, because it'll kill the human body. So they're not a match.
And they're trying to get certain characteristics out of these embryos and put them back in their genetics, because they're missing some things, and they're trying to heal themselves, I guess.
It is. And it's a really blended thing that I think the more, and I would even invite more specifically that you look into, because this is something that I feel that you have mastery of in your soul records and that kind of energy, because at a particular level, we're all kind of tinkered with, right? It's all the God founder building blocks and codes and the seeds that have been put together, and some become like mantis, and then the mantis kind of get blended with something else, or the Lyrans get blended with even the Orion breeds, so the Rigelians. So this is where we get the Irma, and it's a Lyran feline being. So a Lyran genetics being that was combined with Rigelian energy, Rigelian genetics, so Orion, Rigelian. And this would have brought in more of the reptilian, because snake lineage into it.
Here, Orion, I think of the three, like the Pyramid of Giza, they're all, those three pyramids in Egypt are lined up to Orion. And that was kind of the start of us here. So that's kind of what when you say Orion, that's what comes to my mind.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. So I apologize if I say this a little off. Analam there's the three stars in the belt of Orion. And you have Mintaka, Analam, and Alnak.
Okay.
Don't quote me on the pronunciation.
That's amazing. It's hard to remember all these things.
So it's the belt is actually a very prolific and very diverse area where there's a lot of energy of the Orion. So we're going to say now that there's a group called the Orion Empire.
Okay, because the Draco reptilians come from there, right?
And then there's the Draco Empire.
Oh, okay.
And we don't want to mix them with just Dracos.
Okay.
Because there's benevolent dragons out there.
Yes.
So the Dracos, the dragon lineage, does come from the Draco constellation. They are also part of the founder seed races, and I do believe that the founders have seeded in kind of in multiple timelines. So that is one for us to, I think, meditate on a little bit more. But as the founders come through, they are more like the ethereal dragons holding all of the seeds. And then we have the dragon beings, the Draconians, that are from Draco, and also Sagittarius. That constellation kind of close in there is some of the places where a lot of them started, and then they migrated towards Orion. Now, part of this is just realizing it's huge amounts of time, and they've been exploring. They've technologically gotten really advanced. Now, it wasn't until much later that there was groups of them that got really infected. So these infections, I personally don't know exactly the pinpoint of where they came in. It almost feels like there might have been multiple kind of intrusion places within the body of this universe. I do feel as though there was one place within Andromeda that a tear within the universe happened, and something from outside this universe got in that was not organic from the system. So therefore it acts like nanites, black goo. And so then when you hear beings out there talking about, oh well, yeah, they've captured some of these draconian beings and their bodies seem as though they're infected with this virus, I really do feel as though they were just a race of beings that got infected by something, and this infection really created aggression. It created a desire to overtake. It just kind of created that energy that is what we would know as the negative energy.
Would you say there would be like an AI component to it?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like that. Like it's not their choice. They kind of got hijacked.
Yes.
Is what it feels like.
Yeah, and so a virus, I feel viruses are very much AI. I would almost say they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Because they're an inorganic entity that needs a host. And then they take over the host.
And
then they can actually, even a virus in us can get us to act certain ways, you know, or think certain ways. So it does create a digression, and it hosts on the being. So with that being said, I feel that that's an energy that you were very aware of when you came into the universe, therefore that you've been working, I really light up on this, that you've been working the entire time, that the Christos mission, even though we think of it as holding Christ's light and all of this thing, has really been about how do we genetically evolve ourselves from being hostable by this parasite.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a progression of this energy, and instead of combating it, that you on a really high level, and this is so funny because I'm just putting this together, why you work so much with tinctures and things like that. But you on a very high level are not trying to outwit it with strength, but more outwit it with genetics.
And vibration. Stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So within your time in Lyra, and then kind of starting to connect with Rigel, I was actually picking up that you have connection to the reptilian, the benevolent reptilian races, because Lyra is also the seeding place of the benevolent, the beautiful reptilian races, the snake lineages and all of that, you know, the insectoid races and the cetacean races, all the different races that became, you know, beautiful beings. And I always like to joke that we all have a lot of reptilian in us, otherwise we'd all be hairy, right?
Well, we have a reptilian brain too.
Right.
Yeah.
So with thinking about the reptilian beings in Orion and Rigel and things like that, we're still going to be looking at some that are going to have somewhat semblance to a different kind of form, but for the most part still quite humanoid looking beings. Now what happened is that there was an aspect of you that participated with the councils in creating the Irma race. Now this race of being, just to know how they're tied in, is they came to Earth far before the Luciferian fall, so to speak, which means that before that whole battle, before the battle of Tiamat and everything happened, they had already been here creating inner Earth sanctuaries and areas, and their ships were like, really technologically advanced. They're one of the more ancient races because they were created around the first times when there was starting to be a need for that kind of assistance within the universe. So they were, the reason why I bring them up is they're kind of like your guardian too.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, they have an energy that they respect you. The way I feel it is when they connect with you, is that there's an energy that they acknowledge your energetic signature of who you are as part of their founder.
Oh, cool. Wow.
So within that is just to know that they did actually assist, like, and this is something I was kind of reading through the Anton Parks books, is that some of these Irma races, they could easily outpower any of the beings that had landed here, the Sumerian god beings, so to speak. But they took a little bit of favor with Enki.
Okay.
And they actually gave him, when they left Earth, they gave him access to the inner world places, because he was in some ways attempting to help the humanity that was getting modified. So even though he played a part in it, he was still trying to sneakily help humanity.
Yeah, they thought he was some would be helpful.
Yeah.
Kind of help from within, I guess.
So after your life cycles within Lyra, you did move to the Orion system, and you've spent some time there. Within Orion, you were primarily in Rigel. Now, Rigel was the seat of the Draconian Empire for a while. It's also one of the seats where some of the resistance forces were. Now, within Rigel, again, think of this where the Irma was created to actually combat the Draconian Empire, right under their noses, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
So sneaky.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, this energy, just because there's a force trying to manipulate and control an entire planet, think of Earth, is pretty dominated by a select few group of people. But there's a lot of underground resistances. There's a lot of inner Earth factions. There's a lot of beings. And so I feel as though you were working with really high council there. You were in the 6th dimensional ray. You were a blue being in this place. And this is when you really started to actually incarnate a little bit into more of the dragon lineage. So taking on more of the sacred snake lineage, the dragon lineage within you, in order to work through that line as some of the high council, what we might call the high priestess kind of levels. And that the divine feminine was part of really the creators of a lot of the sacred lineages. It was the women that could create.
Yeah.
The men had to go use technology and stuff if they didn't do it through the sacred female, the sacred feminine. But the feminine could hold genetics within them and then birth through new creations and things like that. So a lot of what you were doing there was really working. This is the interesting thing in there, and this is why I really feel the connection with the Irma in there, is that you were starting to hold more of the ancient snake lineage within you, but you were still a complete blending with the feline. And I was all like, I really wish I could see that. I just think it would be so beautiful to like see the different progressions and the changes of form. But you were working with the resistance against the Dracs, so against the darker draconian infected forces that were starting to move out. So you were in the hot spot. You were in one of the most intense places that you could be. As you were there, you were really working. So just to know that this is primarily connected with your ascendant. So this means the direction. This is kind of like even still kind of the direction that you're moving within this lifetime, as you're kind of stepping in to your absolute of who you are. What's working with you is a lot of these beings who have been a part of this mission with you, who may be incarnated on Earth right now. Who knows? Maybe that's where we know each other from.
We all kind of got along pretty easily.
Right? And so just to know that Rigel is sextile in your chart with your ascendant. In short, what that means is that it's a force that's working with you right now. Also to know that the energy in Orion has shifted. It's already that has the power has been shifting out of the hands of those empires, and it's starting to move back into the people, to the planetary systems, and all of the different races that are there. And also the Stargate has been recaptured back by the Christos races.
Yeah, I can feel it. Just within the last month, a lot has shifted.
So now what that means is that your ties with this place are now amplified as a benefit for you. It's forces that have given you more strength, the ability to outwit things, the ability to
see through traps.
Exactly, to see through things, to see if something's coming, but not let it get you down because you've been through so much more than that.
Yeah.
And that is where I feel a lot of your strength actually comes from.
Well, and I feel like all of us are under such mind control. And for some reason, I'm not as affected by it as a lot of other people. So I can kind of see through it, and I can kind of, counteract it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so this kind of leads to Alanak. I really hope I'm saying it right. Alnitak.
That's a tough one.
Alnitak. Sorry. That what you said actually just kind of leads perfectly into that energy within there, because now within times in Alnitak, this is where I feel as though you actually got delved in a little bit more. This is where I feel that you started to get kind of eyes on you as to what you were doing through your incarnational cycles. In Lyra, you weren't really so messed with, but
once kind of undercover, huh?
Once you and you were such a high vibration that certain beings wouldn't even be able to have associated with you. Once you stepped into Rigel, now you were stepping down your vibration enough to be in a physical form, work with things that were going on. I feel as though in those places you actually spent a lot of time in the interplanetary places on Rigel, not so much the surface, but inner. And that as you spent time in Alnitak. Alnitak is one of 3 stars in the belt that has a lot to do with grays. With a lot of the grays that the Draconians had been manipulating, cloning, creating. They're one of the oldest created races. And unfortunately, they were created to be workers.
They're kind of like robots or something, right?
It's pretty... It's a part of my language, but it's pretty shitty. It's like, but they were bred to and created to be emotionless, basically. So they could do things that other people couldn't. So they kind of had a bit of an attitude. And, a lot of if you even read if you read the Anton Parks books, they would do what they were told. But even the Anunnaki didn't even like them. They were mischievous little shits.
There's another race called the Ebens, and they're like grays too, but they're more they're more human, or they have feelings and they have a conscience, and I think they're trying to help us.
So I feel as though there was multiple created gray races, what we might think of some of them as gray, and I would even love to meditate on this, because some of the the name is slipping me, but like the Iban, and then there's the Eldaru. I think there's another one that I've come across quite a bit that a lot of people are connected with, and they are a beautiful race that we would think they look like a tall gray, but I think they're just an amphibian, reptilian race. But they're considered, like say in Elena Denon's book, she calls them a tall gray, but they're a very benevolent race of beings.
So they're not all bad.
No, not at all. You were dealing with a few cantankerous ones. In the Orion system. So this leads me actually to the mind control thing. So I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because within this is actually connected with your Uranus specifically, which is one of the main energies that has just kind of really been the major catalyst of what you've been moving to heal, because this is square with these Orion planetary alignments, which means it's been something that has been a block or a resistance, or something that you've been working to heal. When I see a square in someone's chart, it's something that's either been creating roadblocks in your in your life cycles, or it's the things that have been happening in the universe that you have been predominantly focusing on to correct.
Yeah, I think that's one thing it really lights up for me. Yeah. It takes away people's free will. I mean, it's a horrible thing. So
you were working still within the resistance within that time, reconnaissance into that place to really kind of figure out what the plans were, what the Greys were doing, and they were of course working for the different empires. So they were working for, say, the Seekar, the Draconian Empire, the Orion Empire, and the there's another group that you might call the Anchara, or these factions that were basically working with dead light energy. They were just infected with a darkness, and they were wanting to overtake.
Spread it. Yeah.
And so these Greys were working on a lot of projects. What I just kind of see is almost as if you kind of snuck into a moon, and you kind of went in and realized, oh, it didn't look like anything was happening, and you got in and you realize there's this huge, like, thousands and thousands of these Greys, like, in production lines doing all these things. And so what I feel is that you were working with a group that became aware of a lot of these different things that were happening, reconnaissance missions that was getting intel with a lot of this plans that the Empire was doing. But because of that, you were able to feed that intel back to help counteract a lot of it, because it was predominantly put into use through mind control, through those kind of things. But you also saw a lot of things that was not pleasant to see, because within this, they didn't show tons and tons of detail, but it was just as if, there's heartless. They don't really care what they're doing. If they had captured a bunch of people from a planet they were taking over, it was just horrible how they were kept, that kind of thing. And so it was just a heartbreaking
that reminds me of what I see with our own medical system right now. I'm really not happy with how it's going. Yeah, but it will change. But
and you're able to be in the inside
of
it.
We need to say that this is not right. But a lot of people just go along, and I'm one of the people who will vocalize and say we can do better. This is not right. And then also, when you were talking about this, I felt like I was with a group of people, and it felt like it was people like you and Joseph in our group, because we do a lot of this stuff.
I feel so connected.
It feels connected, like maybe this is one of the missions we've been working on, because we've been traveling around
so much, and I have to say it's been so amazing to get to look through this, because it helps trigger a lot of the experiences, and just going like, wow, brings a lot of tears to my eyes sometimes too. It's kind of been emotional doing these. Now, within this, just to know that Uranus and Saturn are a couple of the places that you have connections to the galactic center, but it's as if through the energy of it, the things that you've been working with, and Saturn, the rules that you've been trying to change. So Saturn, think of rules, think of structure, think
control,
of the thought forms in the universe. The things that you've been working to change have been kind of attempting to block your connection to the galactic center. It's almost as though you have two squares in those places to the galactic center, so you have connection to it, but it's as if there's something that has been attempting to keep you from accessing kind of that information within there. But what comes really beautifully is just to realize that for you, specifically working with Procyon. So now we're talking about the Sirius star system, Canis Minor. So we're talking about Centaurus and Beta Centauri. So now these two energies, specifically Beta Centauri, is what I'm going to talk about, because you have connections with that, is energy that's going to help you kind of work through any of the Orion stuff. that might still be kind of triggering through at any point for you. And so when we look at Beta Centauri, these are beings that I feel are helping you kind of more on a cosmic level or on an intuitive level. You've been connected with the Centaurus system quite a lot, but I don't feel as though you've incarnated there. I feel as though you've worked with them through counsel, worked with them through different ways, because the beings in Centaurus are actually quite close to Earth. They are also refugees, pretty much almost planetary systems, a refugee of some sort, but they're refugees, descendants from Lyra that have made their way. And some of them are descendants that were in Lyra that then from Orion made it to Orion, and then from Orion they had to be refugees all over again. And so they've gotten flushed out. There are lots of refugees that are Lyran in predecessory genetics, but who have spent a lot of time in Orion constellation planetary bodies. And then when the Orion empires would come through, they would evacuate on ships. They would evacuate and look for new places to live.
Sounds a little bit like Star Wars.
Right? It does. So Centaurus is kind of like that. Now there's two different energies within Centaurus, and I'm going to tell you, you have connections, significant connections with both of them. This is actually one of the places you have a conjunct. So Alpha Centauri, these beings are very technologically advanced, like crazy smart, mad genius smart beings. Crystal technology. They can pick a crystal up and know it, feel it, communicate with it. They would be the ones that create the ship technology that you drive through consciousness, crystalline ships and high technology beings. They have very specifically been involved with Agarthans, the inner earth, all of these kind of things. So they've kind of been involved with Earth quite a bit, mainly because they've kept a little fight in their pants. They basically were refugees that had to flee negative forces, and to save their people ended up in Centaurus. But then they were like, they started chasing them.
Well, maybe they wanted to stop the infection, because eventually it will spread back to them. So maybe they're just trying to keep it under control.
They have very much a protector attitude to them. So what they started doing is, through their technology and their ships, they would sometimes chase after the Draconians.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Give them a little taste of their own.
A little taste of that, especially if they were harassing an undeveloped planet
or abusing innocent people.
There's a lot of planets that you think of it like when the British would land and it's the natives and they're like, oh, I will share my food with you, and then they come and plant their flag and say, now I take your land. So the Alpha Centauris kind of have that energy in there. Now they are part of the energy that is big in your life. They're connected very significantly within your Jupiter energy, but also the primary connection you have with the Centaurians is the Beta Centaurians. Now they too are refugees, but they found their little oasis, and they said, I like it here.
This is where we're staying, huh?
This is good.
Yeah.
This is high vibrational. They are so loving, so empathic, so telepathic, transparency. When we talk a lot about how we want to become spiritual adults and to be able to be transparent because we want to be able to have shareable waves and shareable thoughts, that's how they live. They live in harmony with their planet. They live in harmony with each other. And they know of what's going on in the universe, but for the most part, they do not like to get involved. They just are humming a frequency in this planetary system in Beta Centauri, which is actually a planet called Hadar. So they're considered the Hadarians. Now, there have been quite a few Hadarians that have started to choose to incarnate. And you hold a lot of this signature. Now, as a Hadarian, what this tends to create within your life is people feeding off of your energy, over trusting other people, and then having people take advantage. Mainly because there's such a trusting and openness, a wanting to give, and all of this energy within the Hadarians, because that's just how the culture is there, that there is almost a learning curve to integrating into a place this.
That resonates. It takes a while to figure it out. And there's not a lot of help.
No.
Or back, in the 80s, when I was going through a lot of that, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So you'd think, well, what's wrong with me? Or, that. But then now that I can look back on it, I can realize what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, because there's so much love for a Hadarian, and also to feel other people, is there's almost an energy of wanting to help, wanting to fix, wanting to heal. And I think, if anything, that energy is a signature. So what I want to kind of show is that you came through Andromeda. So you have an Andromedan signature within your soul, mainly because of the Andromedan galaxy, but you can also realize that that's kind of the mother of this whole galaxy. And so you predominantly hold Lyran energy within you that's held a lot of feline. But now these planets that I'm going to start talking about, most of them are genetic lineages that have become descendants of the Lyrans. At different times, through either being refugees, from relocating, or from just exploring. And sometimes it isn't a tragic thing in the sense of someone flushing them out of a planet. Sometimes a planet just can't sustain life anymore. The planet goes through a cycle and it starts dying or not being able to sustain life. And so then you're like, I'm on a desert. I better go. We better get in our ship and go. And so that would happen too. So now, let me just kind of look on here really quick. Your main places that your soul holds kind of frequencies and energy with, you did have incarnations since Orion with a few other places. So these are going to be energies that you kind of hold a signature of. I like to call them fractalized kind of energies that you hold an aspect of, because it's really hard to tell sequential things, because there is a lot of timeline stuff that happens in the higher dimensions and things like that. So what I want to invite is just to realize that you have huge connection with the Hadarians in Beta Centauri, which is that sensitivity, that empathic energy, that wanting to help and to heal, and also almost being overwhelmed by other people's energy. So learning boundaries is a huge one with that. With the Lyran energy, that this has created a lot of the creator energy for you, the ability to really understand genetics on a really deep level. But also this is kind of what started to embed into the fighter energy within the Orion, and understanding the mind control and what was happening there. So you got really connected. The Greys, I think at that point when you were in kind of reconnaissance in there, this is where I started to tap into a signature, that this is where some of the energies come from, any negative abduction experiences. Is just kind of a resonant signature from that, kind of an ongoing battle, so to speak. And within that predominantly, what I was picking up is predominantly most contact that you've had has been positive.
Yeah, that's how
a positive connection. There's just been, I just get a feeling of maybe twice of kind of the, what we might call, I hate using the positive negative, but I don't have a lot better to use with here, but more of the negative intended connection would have been maybe only 2 times. Is
so
what
I feel like I have a lot of protection.
So much.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I really light up on that.
Yeah.
So within this, that you've also been really connected with the Arcturians, and this has been primarily through counsel, through guideship, through I feel as though different soul cycles you've kind of gone through there. to kind of work with them and kind of learn a little bit and that kind of thing. But then another significant place that was coming up, you have two other ones, which is going to be Tau Ceti and Capella. Now, Capella is a really interesting energy in there, and because this is a race of beings that predominantly they're explorers. They're also quite brilliant. They also actually create really cool ship technology, but they have a little bit of a different passion. Their passion tends to be more to go to planetary places and share teachings and share wisdom, to guide other civilizations, especially developing civilizations that they think that they might be ready to receive new information. Sacred architecture, the ways that you would line up buildings, the way that you would maybe create a harmonious place. And so within Capella, it's very much a group energy. It's a group energy in that sense. And they have had quite a bit of connection with Earth, especially within South America. There's a lot of people in South America that actually will point to Capella and be like, oh, we've had visitation from there and things like that. But for the most part, within this energy, what I was getting is that you've spent time really, it was more about the exploratory. It was lifetime cycles of allowing yourself to be a part of a group that was doing humanitarian work throughout the universe, and also really kind of stimulating, because it wasn't all battle, so to speak. It wasn't really so much battle at all, actually. It was more about discovery, like landing on a new planet and being like, tell me about this plant. What is it? What does it do? What medicinal properties does it have? And so this was really the geneticist in you was having a lot of fun through the Capella lifetimes as far as that connection. But very much part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, if you will. They are connected. If you say the next time we go hang out on a ship, you could ask for one to come forward. A lot of the ships have mixed crews on them, beings from all over the place on there. And so that would be one that I would invite you to connect with, just because they're very much connected with Earth, with developing civilizations, kind of helping and teaching and guiding and that energy there. But also really good with technology in that sense. There's actually quite a few. I think everybody's pretty much more technologically advanced than we are here, right?
Yeah.
So within that, you also have connection with Antares. And I want to signify this for you right now, because within your connection to Antares this gives you an ability to really reach a high council that can guide you. And then this Antares is a place that allows you to move through different portals. And it is connected with your Mercury, so your level of communication, how you are in service to others, how you share the words that you share. So think about when you do speak up for what is right, that this Antares Council has a great ability to be able to share with you kind of the wisdom and how to use the words in the most powerful way, and the vibration to hold with how you share those words in that energy. So now let me just go right to your chart. There's so many details to it. I could go on and on and on.
Cool.
So now I want to talk about, just from your chart, you have significantly a lot of squares in your chart. There's just like so much protection around you, but it's as if you just are carrying all of it right now. It's like,
I think I asked for it before I came here, or I set it up before I came here, I think.
And I feel too, one amazing thing is that you can look back in your life and realize that you've pretty much worked through the majority of them.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work.
Right?
Yeah.
But you can also look back in your life and go like, oh, I see where all those squares were.
Yeah.
And just be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So with that is just to allow yourself to know that you have the guidance, you have the assistance. So let's go ahead and look at this a little bit. So this is your chart. The pink ones, I'm going to send this to you, are your conjuncts.
Okay.
They're the ones that you're right in alignment with. The oranges are your squares.
Okay.
A few orange on there.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rainbow.
And then the yellow ones are going to be the places where you are conjunct, which means it's an energy you can pull into your life.
Okay.
Right? So I'm going to kind of go through this just to share. So just to know that your ascendant came in Leo.
Okay.
Now, I thought this was really interesting because there's something significant to the Leo constellation, but I can't find anything about it. There's no like alignments or anything that I can line up, but you kept trying to show me there's something really significant with this particular alignment you picked in this Leo energy. But predominantly just to know that because you chose your ascendant in Leo, that you're supposed to shine in this lifetime. You chose a body type to stand out, to be on the stage, to allow yourself to be seen, to allow yourself to be recognized. Not so much because you need to be recognized, but that there's a joy in doing what you do, and when you act from that joy, that it's a solar energy. You just shine because you're a sun and you want to shine.
Yeah.
And then guess what? All the little sunbathers come out and they're like, ooh, I love the sun. And so it draws people to you so that the rest of what you have to share can actually be received by other people.
Okay. That makes
so
sense.
just to know that you have a solar gravitational field within your energy field, that the primary direction that you are calling yourself to move towards in this lifetime is right here, your north node, and it's in Taurus in the 10th house, which means allowing people to not only see you shine through your Leo energy, but now your 10th house is where it is your public house where you shine, or where others see you, who you are.
So how I interact with others.
And this is connected with your Andromedan energy.
Okay.
So even though your North Node is asking you to move into it, you've already been through there. So it's kind of asking you to loop back around and bring that Mother Galaxy energy back in here.
Okay.
So when I really intuit and look at this, that in the public house is speaking, public house in Taurus is Earth. It's Mother. It's about planetary rights. It creates, when you have something that's significant in Taurus, you're going to care about the environment. You're going to care about nature. You're going to care about the ecosystem. You're going to care about planetary consciousness. And then the messages that you share are going to have the cohesiveness of the Andromedan council behind it, which means how to start restructuring this planet into a planetary system that starts to work with clans or in harmony again. That we train our children not based on this draconian system, but rather on one that sees their starseed lineage within them and then lets them be that shining light.
So we can kind of bring the light back in.
Exactly.
And the way we originally intended.
And so the fun thing for you is it's in the gate 24 within your human design chart. If you ever look at it, it's on the middle top in your head. So it's about ideas, inspirations.
I do get a lot of ideas.
And that's it. It's so lit up for you right there. That's your whole. Think of the North Node is everywhere you're being pulled. Like if you just start running towards that, and you keep letting yourself just be in your highest vibration that you are, that it's like everything falls in line. It's where your soul says, okay, go this way.
Okay.
So as you kind of allow that energy to happen, it allows you to pull on the South Node energy. And the South Node, again, already has connection to Andromeda. So that's the beautiful thing about it. That's why I have it pink, even though it's conjunct. Is just to know you already have that energy, and that it's really activated by the 44, And I want to just, the 44 is just about what is important. What's important. You already have gone through all of the life cycles of needing to know what's important, what's worth taking forward, what is the most valuable resource that will actually help society thrive and move forward
it's from. Like you're in like a puzzle. You're trying to figure it out in a way. You know. Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
So with that is to then begin to kind of look at this. And so we have 4th house, 10th house polarity within your south node and your north node, which means public speaking versus home. So the south node is already comfortable in home.
Yeah.
So it's asking you to kind of step out a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm outside your comfort zone.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like.
Things are switching, should be able to work.
And it's also about that there's a level that you've gone so deep, the Scorpio energy here of what to trust, who to trust, gone through deceit, been tricked by so many people that now as you trust yourself, connect with the council, that all of that just starts to fall away, and now it's just the wisdom of you see it, you know it, you recognize it, you move on from
and then,
it.
Like you're saying, I can share it with others. Yeah.
Absolutely, it becomes a teaching aspect for you. That you have over here your Pluto. Now, just to know, your Pluto and your Uranus are very close together, and they're in the 2nd house, so it's very Taurus energy. And so let's just kind of coming back to this, because this is where you've had significant energy blocking or things that you've been working to heal from the Orion timelines.
Okay.
So I would invite you to really kind of look at any of the energy where you have felt blocked in sharing your ideas.
Okay.
In feeling safe expressing who you are. 2nd house is an inner security. Where's my place in the world? Who am I? Who can I be in this world? And as you embrace just realizing that whatever has happened, that it's not your responsibility to fix everybody.
Not everyone wants to
do stuff for everybody. Exactly. And so as you embrace that your Uranus is also over here in square your Galactic and square the Orion. So that it's really about that you've been triggered a lot into action, and the places where your soul keeps aligning you is all the places where there have been blocks or resistance within tragedies within the Orion system. A lot of those influences that you've experienced in those lifetimes, as well as the things that have been holding you back from the galactic center and that portal of connection within there. And so as you embrace both of those, that you start to allow yourself to connect, and the way to heal that is through the 8th house. And this, interestingly enough, is where your Chiron is. So it's the deepest wound you get to heal. So when you heal your wound, so to speak, it's done.
Okay.
You've completely been able to be who you came here to be, which is still square, because they're right opposite each other. So it's still square. So it's telling you that what the wound is, the deepest wound is exactly the medicine that you came to be for other people, but that you will find it through embracing trusting others again. Trusting others with discernment.
I have the skill to figure it out.
Sacred magic, sacred practices, teaching. So this is about going beyond the veil. It's not only 8th house, which is Scorpio energy, watery, deep, but it's also Pisces. It's the house of the spirit. Pisces is the final transcendence, right? So as you merge yourself into the beauty of like, yes, I'm here in this material world, but I'm also of spirit. And that as spirit, I am not truly bound by other people's beliefs or thoughts or what they think of me, then therefore I become free, and therefore you can help people become free of those very same bindings.
Because it seems like things are changing. I mean, quickly. So it's like we're getting ready. Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
It is. Yeah.
Now, with this to know too that you have just a deep connection with the Orion Nebula. That I think if you can reconnect with the different nebula energies, so the Orion Nebula is going to be pretty much where the thymus, the 8th chakra is, and the higher heart, that will allow you kind of the ability to connect with this nebula energy. It's a gateway that once you connect with it, you can think of a lot of these nebulas that you can utilize them kind of like a transporter. So it would be up to your discernment if that's a connection that you feel guided to just really connect with the higher vibrational beings and to see what new codes, what new information might be wanting to come through. So also what I thought was really beautiful is, so over here you have right kind of feeding an energy into your emotions. So just an ability to realize the moon is holding the emotional state of being, and that your emotions are very much geared towards the greater good of humanity. It's
it has to do with the Christos mission, so it works together.
Absolutely. So your moon is in Cancer in the 11th house. What that means is Cancer is really a desire to be nurturing. To help others feel safe, almost like home. Think of the crab he carries home everywhere with him. He's like, it's a hominess, a safeness within there. But on an emotional level, this is going to first of all require you to feel safe in front of others. Because 11th house is a house of humanitarian. It's about service for others, kind of service to others kind of house in there. But that first you have to feel emotionally safe yourself in order to create that safe for other people. And as you shine that, what you're asked to pull in is Vega, so the Lyran energy, and also the Ring Nebula and Lyra, which now we're talking about really starting to connect with the Aramitena vibration, the 12th Stargate, and it's another kind of way to really connect with the Andromedan galaxy. Don't ask me how. I look at star maps and I'm all like, we look at it like this, but really it's like this, and we're moving through it like this. So it's hard to kind of conceptualize, how we're connected to these galaxies, but if you kind of just let your mind play with the holographic model, almost as though we're stacked on each other, and these portals kind of create these little tunnels that allow us to connect to different places throughout the sphere of existence. That it's just your ability to create this new level of safety, that it's safe to be here in this planet. It's actually okay to it's okay to be here.
We don't have to feel bad.
You don't have to leave. And that within this, to actually really help you with this energy, the beings that you will connect with in this life is beings from Sirius B. So the Sirian energy of allowing you to connect. Sirius B is one of those places that went through a lot, but it's also one of the places that the Aeoni and the Azurite Christos mission lineage. So your Elohim lineage created the Templar security teams, and Sirius B was one of the seat places in there. So Sirius B, Mintaka, you got Lyra, you have Alcyone, you have these key places within your chart. So you kind of have yourself incarnated in all the places where your Christos lineage kept, creating safe havens and places of anchoring the sacred teachings to send it to the next area. Now, if there was skipped steps that you did not complete in other life cycles here or just in general in your soul, It would be in letting yourself be you.
Mm-hmm.
Your squares to your nodes are your sun and your Mercury. Now, when you see a square to your south or north node, in evolutionary astrology, this is considered a skip step. Something that you intended to,
but I didn't quite do
in a last life, and then you went,
I'll do that later.
so you hear me say a lot of times, it's like, well, look at your life like it's a past life now, and do you want to relive this next time? And it's usually like, at least you know who all the players are now, right?
Yeah.
Well, the sun is going to represent you being you. You allowing yourself to show your uniqueness, embrace who you are, and march. Usually when it's to the sun, it means that you've been called to be different.
I am different, yeah.
Let's just say it like it is.
Yep.
And Mercury is voice.
Okay.
Communication. How you speak.
Okay.
So then it also, what that tells me energetically is that there was something where you didn't feel as though you spoke up the way you should have in another life, or that you didn't follow through with who you planned on being. And so this lifetime, you stacked all the cards in your favor to not just placate your way through this life. Which generally means that we put challenges in our life in order to overcome them. And then there's one more skip step, and that is with the AC. So that is about the AC in Leo shining.
Okay, and that's where I came in. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a beautiful energy.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the inner earth.
Okay. Wow.
How you doing so far? Do you have any
good.
questions?
No, I'm just taking it in. Trying to kind of assimilate it and absorb it and kind of bring it in.
It's so much, right?
It is. It's cool.
So now one of the huge energies you have, so you kind of spent time Lyra into Orion. From Orion, you've spent time in different places. You've traveled to different places, even spent soul time in Arcturus, in Capella, quite a few lifetimes there, Tau Ceti. And Tau Ceti is another group of beings that you would just kind of see them as beings who are just living on their planetary bodies. They're living lives, but they're also merchants. They do travel, they do trade throughout the universe, and they do work with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. They have had to deal with the disruption from the Draconian empires there. Absolutely. And the interesting thing with Tau Ceti, depending on how you connect with it, but usually when I see this, my heart kind of pulls this way, is that Tau Ceti is one of the areas where the race of beings migrated off of there and made their way to Venus, what we would call the Venusians.
Okay.
So if you feel a connection to the Venusians, Venus.
So that's like what Rob Potter, he's into the Venusians.
Yeah. So that kind of energy within that, which would be higher dimensional beings.
Kind of like Valiant Thor.
Yeah. So, and the way I see them again is kind of an energy that, they're living their life, but they can't help but want to get involved. Maybe share a little law of one.
They're
maybe
like our brothers and sisters, right?
Right. Yeah, they just have such a tendency to want to help, where it's just like, okay, well, maybe if I share this with them, well, I'll share all this healing technology with you, but you got to put down your guns. So also, you could think of within Tau Ceti, this is also going to be a place, if you even think of the Venusians, a lot of their technology is geared towards medical apparatuses for the health and vitality and healing, of the body and healing. So
because it seems like the longer a being can live in an incarnation, the more wisdom they'll have. But if they keep having these short ones, they're not going to gain the wisdom. Whoops. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and it's really interesting because when we really look at a lot of higher vibrational beings in planetary systems, health is not really medical. It's more about the longevity of the bioregenesis form. So there's an understanding of the cellular tissues, how the body energy, works, and then you have a blending where some are using more technology, sound beds, frequencies. They can, use different tools to heal the body, and then there's others that you would start to look at as becoming more spiritually advanced. I would say beyond the Tausetians, which is going to be elevating towards light body. You don't need technology at a certain point. No. After a while, you're like,
we're good. Yeah.
I'm all right. I just
when you're in a light body, you're not going to have too many health problems. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you've spent a lot of time on ships. You've actually spent full cycles just living on really large ships. Ships that we might call motherships or the planetary ships. I think that's why they feel so familiar sometimes, where you're like, where's my quarters?
Yeah.
It's right where I left it. And that kind of thing. And then there is connection with Spica. Now, I'm starting to learn a lot more about Spica, but what I have found out so far, as I've kind of intuitive and researched, is this is a genetic race of beings that has also been connected with a lot of the Syrians and also the Pleiadian energy that is really involved with Earth.
Okay.
So now we're going to start to talk about your choices to come towards this planetary body, and I feel that was more of a connection with the Pleiades. Now your connection with the Pleiades is multifaceted. You have connection with Aldebaran, which is in the Taurus constellation, and more primarily Hades. Again, I apologize if I say it wrong. I'm really still trying to learn how to say these. Hadium beings is what they would be, but it's Hyades, Hyades.
Okay.
And this is, when you look at the Taurus constellation, you'll see the Pleiades way up over here in the little tiny cluster. You'll see Aldebaran is really bright right here. Kind of Orion is kind of almost pointing towards Aldebaran, which leads you right to the Taurus constellation. And then there's this little cluster of stars in the middle, and that's the Hyades.
Okay.
So all of those, the Pleiades, Aldebaran, and Hyades, are all basically the Taurus constellation.
Okay.
This was a hot spot.
Okay.
All of that was just to tell you it's a hot spot.
Okay.
This is where the majority of the Anunnaki cloning took place. This is where a lot of the Kadistu planners have lived. So the high, what we would call the Charisti or the Christ consciousness being. So this is one of the hot spots and seats where we have had the races holding sacred teachings and really working towards planning and mapping out what was going to happen throughout the genetics in the universe. Now, within this particular place, this is where I feel as though you kind of connected with Alcyone in the Pleiades. Now, Alcyone is the key place again where the fall happened.
Okay.
So now if you can imagine, here you are in the Taurus constellation, and you know that a bunch of the regressive, like draconian beings, are starting to manipulate and mess with the angelic races that are on Alcyone. And so now Alcyone beings have kind of gone from 12 tribes of created beings, created angelic races from the Orifim, into two races, the Alunia and the Luminans, or the Lumians. So the predecessors to the Atlanteans and the Lumerians. And you got them over there, and then you got the Alunians, the predecessors to the Atlanteans, that are starting to play with some radio, like kind of fusion technology and stuff. And they're like, ooh, I could get more weaponry if we tapped right into the fusion center of the core of the planet, couldn't we? And so you were part of observing some of this. So what I asked is what your place was within this. And what was coming up is that you were working with the angelic races that were being created. Mm-hmm. You were also part of the brainstorming for the halls of Amenti.
Okay.
That were put into place. So this is a timeline stuff I'm talking about, because it's like there was time technology that allowed you guys to know something was about to happen. So you went to a past timeline and put halls of Amentis because you knew in a future timeline they were going to blow up a part of Alcyone.
Okay.
And so this way it was already in place for when all the souls fell.
We were ready then.
You guys were so on it. You're like, I see you. I'm gonna get it. So you also were aware of the being Enki, is what I picked up through this, and also worked or aware of a lot of the cloning and the different races that were happening on the different planetary systems. So you just had a know of what was going on. So I feel as though there was time where your soul kind of connected with the Hadarians and Beta Centauri, almost as a soul kind of vacation.
Okay, just a healing time. Huh?
So there's an aspect of you that holds that energy of that Hadarian energy of going like, it's gonna be okay.
It will be fine.
We'll work through it. And then the other part of you that's like the full-on warrior that's like,
we gotta do something here.
Right in there, doing the reconnaissance, knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
So within this, now we're talking about you're connected with the Pleiadian history and timelines. You're connected with the different things happening, in Hadium. And also Aldebaran, with a lot of the genetics and things that are going on there. And just to know, if you actually look up Aldebaran, there's kind of a diversity of energy from Aldebaran. But the beings from Aldebaran, very much, they're light beings, but were previously genetically created beings through the Enki lineage.
Okay.
And they know exactly who Enki is and all of this stuff, So there's a lot of races in Aldebaran that was their past. They're the children of, but then they have been choosing to incarnate into light bodies.
Okay.
And so that's a huge theme throughout the universe. If you actually go inward and just check your soul records and your soul memories, but a huge capability is really about, can we get back to light body? Because light body means that we're able to resonate at a radial frequency within our cellular tissues that start to match the pure flame of the divine creator.
More places and do more things,
and we become our own spaceship.
We have our freedom.
So part of the digression that has happened through the mind control and through the different hypnotic programmings was to disconnect people from their knowledge of how to turn into light body again, or to make it seem so impossible, like you couldn't do it. Like here, we all have heard of rainbow body.
Yeah.
Oh, something the Tibetans talk about.
A few people have done it.
Oh, those Tibetans. And then what do we think? The first thing we think of the Tibetans is like, oh, well, then you got to sit in a cave for your entire life, or else you'll never do it.
For years, yeah.
So it's been turned into something that seems impossible. You have the technology within you that has that remembrance and that awareness how to do that.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So pass it on, girl.
Okay. Yeah.
But within that, you're connected with creating the halls of Amenti, which is one of the primary ways that you really started to connect with the inner earth.
Okay.
And so there are inner earth races that was their guardianship role, was to protect these luminescent beings who were stargates. And you also have connection throughout your timeline with what we're going to call the Cathar dragon lines on the planet. So now we're talking about the sacred teachings, the sacred infrastructure of the planet, the way the energy moves through the body of the planet, like the meridians. But also, this ties into the sacred architecture and geometry. So if you ever find yourself that you really get drawn into like seeing like the sacred temples or pyramids, or get kind of like enamored with, wow, look how perfectly they're lined up to this, and look, if you actually like draw lines, they it's make blah blah blah. That's part of your that's part of your connection, what you've been doing throughout some of your incarnational connections was guiding where some of the surface earth was building temples, where and how these temples were being built and things like that. And also just to realize that a lot of them were built on different timelines, so they didn't pop up all at once, you know. But you'll have to just find whichever ones that you predominantly maybe resonate with more, because I was kind of getting that even within the inner earth you had certain areas you kind of stuck to more, because there's inner earth cities all over the place, and there's some that's I find very interesting. There's some that are called the crust, earth crust, inner earth, and then there's inner earth
ones. Interesting.
There's actually a bunch that they're called the inner crust cities.
And then there's like a sun in the middle, and there's a lot of cool stuff.
And a lot of the ones that are more in the inner crust, they actually are very high vibrational, probably 4th to 5th dimensional consciousness, technology, earth plants, that kind of thing. They do interact. They're the ones that they'll pop up and scoot around, but they tend to like rural areas, so like country towns, and they don't really go into cities or places like that too much. And one of their things that they do that I thought is very interesting is they keep an eye on the starseed children that are born. That's cool. They know them through DNA markers and signatures. So they have ways to kind of read all of that stuff. And so they'll kind of pop in and out of their life to share little thoughts, little wisdom, maybe help nudge them on their path as far as what they can do and who they can be. Now, and this is where you actually were born, started incarnational cycles into the inner earth. I got that the connection was more with Agartha kind of energy within there, and I would just invite you to just feel out where you feel most connected. But this is going to be connections with the lineages with Lemuria, the lineages and connections with the Lyran Syrians, and the Blue Ray lineage line. So a lot of what we might even later call like the Blue Melchizedek lineage, those that are holding the Christos mission, those that have been holding the sacred knowledge that we've come to understand as the CDT plates, and a lot of the emerald, like not so much the emerald tablets, but the CDT plates, and like the emerald, when we think of like the emerald Gurku crystal and things like that, those are how the sacred teachings are really held, and you have to know how to activate them. Like, I might hold your crystal and be like, this is so pretty, and then you hold it and you go vroom, and it just holographically starts playing all these movies and things. You have to know how to activate them, and so you're part of the beings that have been holding that, but also very much just living lifetimes in the inner earth. And that it wasn't until a little bit closer towards Lemuria that you did spend some time with the surface earth, but it wasn't until kind of after that, and really you've only had a few incarnational cycles as a surface earth being. But even within the inner earth, that there is really high vibration. But when you start to pay attention to what's going on in the surface, like you sort of did, because there's a lot in the inner earth that they'll pop up. They'll kind of check on things because, you know,
see how things are going. Yeah.
What the upstairs neighbors are doing does kind of matter. And when their weapons get too crazy and stuff like that, we might need to send some help.
I don't feel like that's like we're warring people. I feel like we're being manipulated.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times they'll say, "Oh, we have to wait till the humans do this." Well, we're not like that. It's just our manipulation. You know.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I feel strongly about. Yeah.
And that was kind of a huge energy that you brought in to the incarnational cycles here. And then I did ask if you were choosing to return back to Earth after this lifetime. And that you are, but you're going back into the inner Earth.
Okay.
So
I have a little home in there or something.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty nice home.
Okay.
I don't think it's just a little home.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
But that's a lot of what I was picking up out of your chart. Do you have any questions about any of that, or?
No, I just gotta let it sink in and process it. And it's really cool because I hear about all these different planets, and it's kind of neat to know where I'm connected. Yeah. You know, we're getting a lot of more information.
Well, you have so many resources to be able to tap into. Just to know the beings from Capella, the beings from Tau Ceti, and the beings from Alpha Centauri are really active here. Okay. So if you ever choose in your dream time to work with the ships or anything like that, they are the ones that are more kind of scooting around.
Yeah, it seems
scooting around the skies. There's a lot of Pleiadian too.
Like I'm doing a lot of healing work lately. Like this morning I was like in the inner earth picking like flowers or plants, and like I'm trying to get some medicines, and other times I'm in a ship and we're broadcasting frequencies. Like we're working at doing a lot of healing on the earth right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just go to sleep and then I wake up and I write it down, and it's with these little invisible elven people. I don't know if I met them at Shasta or what, but
love it.
Yeah, but I'm working with them all the time.
And that just makes me smile so much, because that would be so much the connection with the inner earth. And that kind of they're very much a real part of our reality. We just they don't want to be seen by us.
Yeah.
We might eat them.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, that makes sense.
There's too many people that